Hello and welcome once again to SuperConnectivity. I'm your host, Charlie, the Professor Esser, and with me as always is...
Phil, I think I need a better nickname, Parrish.
Welcome back, Phil. So first thing I want to talk about. This week at your local comic shop, there were actually two handbooks out. One was the official guide to the Marvel Cinematic Universe Iron Man edition, which I did browse. It was very interesting. Gives you a nice detailed discussion of the Marvel Cinematic Universe and how the characters and ideas in that universe translate back to comic book variations. Did like it, but I decided to pick up this week Secret Wars Official Guide to the Marvel Multiverse. And man, I mean, for a one-shot book, it is pretty lovely. I'm hoping that there's going to be more. It's got just great breakdowns of all these characters we know and love from the Marvel Universe. I have not gotten to read a lot of it yet. There's a whole section on the Spider-Verse crossover, a whole section on the Ultimate Universe. Interestingly enough, the Thunderball gets a whole section here. Thunderball, as you may recall, is going to be a member of the new Illuminati. As I said, I'm really looking forward to finding out that there's going to be a superhero cabal. And this was the part that I really liked. There's an entry for Secret Wars 2. Not Secret Wars, but Secret Wars 2. And runs through the whole storyline of Secret Wars 2 and then basically gives you what happened to the Beyonder next. And what I found very interesting is on our last entry for the Beyonder, before we get into discussion of the new Secret Wars, there had become a sentient cosmic cube called the Maker, yada, yada, yada. However, let's see here. When the negative zone's Annihilus devastated multiple galaxies with the Annihilation Wave, the Maker's mortal body was killed, releasing the fully powered Beyonder back into reality, though he has yet to reappear. Then they go, still seeking to end all life in a grand experiment, the Beyonders soon caused realities to collide, ultimately destroying the multiverse. However, Doom, having claimed much of the Beyonders' power, created a new battle world from reality's remnants and rules as a god. They do make reference to the Beyonder being a juvenile Beyonder, suggesting that he was shunted off into a pocket universe, but also suggesting that this juvenile Beyonder was in some way tied to Owen Reese, as we know. Perhaps even suggesting that that Beyonder was tied to all Owen Reeses. And it doesn't give away a lot about what I think we're going to be seeing coming up in Secret Wars, but I do think it gives us really interesting things to dwell on, to deal with. They do mention that, yes, Beyonder did destroy Death. Death was destroyed in Secret Wars 2. The Beyonder had that power. It was not just some trick, some thing to fool people, but a real, actual ending of all death in the universe by the hand of the Beyonder, just to really let you know how powerful he is. So yeah, I definitely think original Beyonder is going to be coming back at the end of the new Secret Wars. We're going to have to see. Interestingly, other characters to show up in this book include Obnoxo the Clown, and I kind of want to know what Obnoxo the Clown is going to be doing in the next Marvel universe. We've got our update on Maker, Reed Richards, Lady Deadpool, Cicla, the Iron Avengers from some universe, Killraven's Freeman, yeah, and just they have a whole section on the incursions. What are they? Why are they? And and they have the Children of the Secret Wars storyline here, which was a What If story, What If 114 from 1998 that detailed all the humans when they were left on Battleworld, basically pairing off and having kids and continuing the fight for all eternity. So we see Tatiana and we see Volcana get a big section in here, a nice big section. And of course, Volcana as Owen Reese's little marshmallow. I have to imagine Volcana, the Beyonder, and Owen Reese all coming back at the end of this, because how could they not? How could they not? And those two are just such a cute couple. I want them to make it work. I really want Owen and Volcana to make it work.
Have they said where she's been at lately?
No. Much like Latveria, she is shockingly absent from Battleworld. As I said, that's got to be the big reveal in Battleworld when Doom is saying, "I saved everyone. I'm the great hero. You are a failure." So, and just Reed saying, "Where the heck's Latveria, Doom? You pulled the world together and you didn't save Latveria. The people that you swore up and down were your children, the people you cared most about in all the universe. No, you just let them end just so that you could build a world of superheroes that you could rule over, just so you could be your normal petty self, Doom. Not cool, Doom. Not cool." When
Latveria returns, so they're going to reject Doom, and that's why they go in the Civil War.
Maybe, or maybe Doom kind of realizes that maybe Doom gets properly shamed for once. Although I have to say one thing that also it's interesting. When you read the Old Man Logan story, they make reference to the fact that the Fantastic Four were gone. That they disappeared before that night of the night of the villains, as it were, and. It strikes me as very interesting that now in our current post-war story, they're gone. That Reed and Sue are gone. That and that's what we get is that they're gone. And where they went, we don't know. We know Doom's back, and apparently his teacher is back too. Sure, why not? But we don't know where Reed and Sue are, and although we do know where the Maker is, we do know where 1610 Reed is. It's going to be interesting, exactly how it's all going to play out. So yes, very excited about that. Another interesting thing I want to talk about. Did you see the last episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Phil?
Yes, I did. I watched it last night.
Yes. Now, there's been a lot of talk, and I just want to lay some science on you all out there. There's been a lot of talk about how if Will had been on that planet for 14 years, he did not look like a guy who'd aged 14 years. And I wanted to make this little bit of science explanation for you. Time passes differently on every planet because essentially when you are on a planet, you have what's called acceleration due to gravity, meaning that on that planet's surface, you have a certain amount of force pulling down on you. That force is essentially the equivalent to movement of speed. And as you know, the faster you move, the slower time moves based on our understanding of Einsteinian temporal relativity. Simmons mentions that the gravity is heavier on this planet. And because the gravity is heavier, that means that time is going to be passing slower on this planet. So when she says it's 2015 and he says, "Oh, I came here in 2001," we think, "Oh, he's been there 14 years." In truth, depending on exactly how much heavier the gravity is, it could be he could have been there much less time. He could have been there 7 years. He could have been there 6 years. Because the time is dilated on the planet with the heavier gravity, the more gravity. And then, of course, there's also other things with the rotational spin of the planet and other factors that can go into this that would elongate the time. Now, interesting.
But I think the whole thing. I'm sorry. I think the whole point was, I think Lil made it enough said is time would move slower, but with the heavy gravity, assuming Will's human, wouldn't it put a much more strain on his body, that causing him to age a little quicker though?
Well, it wouldn't put more strain on his body. It would essentially, and again, it depends on how much weight it is. I mean, essentially, it's like this. He's still functional. So however much stronger it is. And I get the feeling that probably it's only a little bit stronger. So the time dilation probably isn't that much. But but let's say, so if let's say it has twice Earth's gravity, which is a huge amount, okay? But that basically means that something that was 10 pounds now weighs 20 pounds, and it would be basically like he is going through every day in his life, with ankle weights on, with 10-pound ankle weights on. And it's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, but he's going to build up to it. He's going to get used to it. And he's already in pretty solid condition as an astronaut, as a test pilot, as a soldier. He's coming into it with physical ability. So basically, building on that from having been on this planet probably isn't going to wear him down that much. And of course, as Jack pointed out, without a son, although we did get that son in the last scene, he'd have other advantages as well. Sort of to borrow from that great scientific documentary Blast from the Past, where living underground basically means that even though Brendan Fraser has lived in there since the 60s and he comes out in the 90s, he's actually only looks like he's in his 20s, so there's lots of different ways where you can say the time is passing differently and things are a little different from. Although at the end of the day, I actually do think that it's actually intentional that he's not aging, and I actually think it is because, as I have suggested, the planet they're on is Ego, and Will is serving as sort of the avatar of Ego. So I don't know if there ever was a Will, or maybe there is a Will, but he at this point is so bonded with the planet that he is actually just part of the planet's defense system now. And that's the thing. Is that,
I think there's, he's not what he seems to be, whatever it is.
Yeah, it's interesting. And for what it's worth, if this is the planet that they were sending unruly Inhumans to, then it's entirely possible that there could be some unruly Inhuman that was left there that survived this whole time. I mean, they are Inhumans. And if this Inhuman, that's another thing. If it's not Ego, it could also be some Inhuman presence on that planet that is incredibly powerful and has been able to survive all this time and has basically been destroying people that come to that world. But that's why I kind of go to the Ego idea, because I think the Ego idea of the planet's sort of self-defense system, essentially attacking these things. But and what I think might be the case is that Will has been, like, if there was a Will, and this is my sort of crazy fan theory. If there was a Will, if there was an astronaut Will who went there, and he may have become the interface to the planet, so that planet can sort of better assess the dangers. Because I mean, if you think about it like this. The Kree had this thing when they would send creatures to this planet, and generally speaking, they were relatively minor things that were coming through. So it'd be like one guy every so often would come through, and whether or not it was beneficial or a non-beneficial, sort of like on your body you have all these bacteria. Most are harmless. Some are harmless. Some are beneficial, and some are actually very dangerous. And so what I could imagine is this planet essentially incorporating a being like Will, and maybe there was another being on that planet before Will, and maybe there are multiple beings on that planet like Will, who are basically there to assess the threats, that basically they're kept alive by the planet, and then the planet uses them to assess, when a new thing comes onto the planet, they assess the threat and either destroy it with the various tentacled monsters that lurk beneath the surface, or incorporate it if they're beneficial, or maybe even just ignore it if they're relatively benign. Although one other thing that I really wanted to point out about the show is that we found out that apparently Simmons is a never nude. Did you ever see Arrested Development?
Yeah, I've not every episode, but yeah, I've seen it.
Well, do you remember what the never nudes were?
Not sure I do.
Okay, so Tobias Funk, played by David Cross, was a never nude, which means that he always wore under his clothing a pair of cutoff shorts, because that way he would never be nude. Because if he ever took off his pants, he would have a pair of shorts on, so he's never nude. And then we found out that apparently Simmons wears a one-piece bathing suit under her clothes at all times.
Yeah, I know. I saw that. I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah, well, because she's a never nude. She always has a swimsuit on underneath, so she's never naked. Which means that there was probably a much more benign relationship between her and Will. But no, yeah. So apparently Simmons is a never nude, and And yeah, so that's what we're dealing with there. But yeah, no, but it was it was a really good episode. It was a great acting episode for Simmons. I mean, I could Miss Henstridge. I could definitely see Miss Henstridge getting an Emmy nod for this. And I was really pleased by that episode. And I'm really interested to see what happens when they go back. Although so it looks like we're gonna have like two parallel stories this season. One, the sort of cosmic story of trying to mount a rescue team for Will, and then the more tangible real world problem of dealing with Ward and what has happened to Andrew. My hope is still that when we get that Andrew is alive and that we're going to find out that basically what caused Strucker to run was turning around and seeing Ty Burrell with a long green wig on. Saying, leave my friend alone. And oh yes, because we need Doc Samson in this story. Ty Burrell, he's on the same channel. He's under contract to Disney. We can make him do whatever we want. Bring him back. Because when he signed into the Hulk, there's like 20 uses that they have for him in there. Because he's bound up. But anyway, what's your big hope for the season right now? Coming into it, Phil.
I don't know. Maybe some more background on the Inhumans. Maybe get us I know they're not going to reveal the royal family on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but maybe get us a little closer. Maybe get some mentions and hints. And who is Lash?
Well, apparently, according to all the comic books that came out this week, next week we find out who is Lash. We're getting there are several promos that we saw in our books this week that basically have Lash and suggesting we're going to get his backstory. Yes, the truth about Lash revealed, and it has been suggested that maybe Andrew is Lash. I don't know about that. It might be interesting, although it's hard to think of Andrew as a stone cold killer like that. But maybe not Lash, but maybe he has some kind of powers. It will be interesting to see where they go next week. I'm sure they have somewhere to go, and we'll go there with them. And it would be very interesting to get some more mythos. And I do wonder if they have limitations on what mythos they can do. Here's the thing: I'm never sure if they hold back on mythology because they haven't been cleared to use the mythology yet, or because they are cleared to use that mythology, but they also don't want to blow all their mythology, right away. You don't want to be opening up in season 1 with, and here's all these, you wouldn't want to introduce the microverse in the first episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because you're going to want to use it somewhere else. But at the same time, and even if you could, even if there was something that they could release, they would want to keep it more under wraps because they need to have something for, season 3 and season 4. So, if we're, and it's always interesting to see how they're going to interpret it. Now, I'm very much of the opinion that the planet we're seeing, even though I always saying that it was Hala, it's like, no, I think it's supposed to be Ego. Because they do suggest that it's, somehow alive and aware. And the fact of the matter is, when they introduce Ego into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, it's not going to be a big head planet, It's just going to look like a planet, but it's going to be a planet that's alive, that has that kind of sentient, kind of ghost story, haunted house feel where the planet is alive, where the planet is moving about and the life on that planet is aware of you and is plotting against you, which is really kind of a great way to do scary with that. It's actually a little disappointing that maybe they didn't do that enough with this episode, because you really had a great setup for a nice haunted house, haunted planet thing there. But, one thing I kind of found interesting was just how kind of restricted they were. And I guess it kind of makes sense. There's only so far they could go when they don't know. They know there's a source of water there, but really, when you think about it, they only explored probably, a few hundred square miles of that planet, and there are parts of the Earth that look a lot like that. And well, literally, there are parts of the Earth that look a lot like that planet. um, but this idea that that basically, yeah, here they're in a desert with a small oasis of water, but there may well be lush vegetation and animals elsewhere on the planet. They just don't know. They've never gone there. Because even if you were walking around 14 years on a planet, there's only so much of the planet you can map from that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's very interesting. It's very exciting where Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is going, and still waiting to hear what we're going to do with Agent Carter and if we're going to get any Marvel guest stars in there. Well, we do know we have one Marvel guest star who is going to be big in there, and also kind of an interesting one when we think about people who we thought they were going to have they didn't have, which is that we in fact we're still calling Agent 33 Madame Mask from time to time, but they actually are going to have Madame Mask on Agent Carter. They're going to have Whitney Frost now as a Golden Age Whitney Frost on Agent Carter, and that's going to be interesting. Just because this is the first time, it's not the first time if we assume that, although they never called him Faustus, but the idea that he did all of Faustus's shtick. So we got this sort of a Golden Age version of Faustus, and now we're going to get a Golden Age version of Whitney Frost. And it'll be interesting to see how that interpretation of the character goes on to influence other aspects of the Marvel comic book and cinematic universes. Are we going to find out in the Marvel comic book universe that now, there was actually a previous Whitney Frost who's going to be very similar to the other one who was, that Whitney Frost's mother or something like that. It'll be interesting.
Or maybe it's mother and daughter and they hold grudges against the Starks.
There's a lot to hold grudges against the Starks for.
Oh, yeah.
Was there any interesting news in the world of Marvel this week?
I'm trying to think. I can't remember any if there was.
Well, I can think of one, which is that Disney and Netflix are getting real cozy some more. As I've mentioned, it's kind of my thought that Disney has been sort of getting involved with Netflix with the plan to eventually buy Netflix and make Netflix the central hub for its online presence for digital streaming. It seems, they're going to be, and I'm trying to remember what if it's, I think it's actually, is it the Force? They're going to be live streaming. They're going to be releasing. They're releasing some big movie. I can't remember if it was.
I think they are. Did it say they're going to be live streaming episode 7, but only in Canada or something?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, it was. Yes, I couldn't remember if it was. I couldn't remember if it was Star Wars or if it was Civil War that they were going to be live streaming in Canada, Canadian Netflix. It was going to be available video on demand, which I thought was really interesting for Marvel for Disney to be taking that stance, and of course with their well expanding, Netflix universe. It really strengthens the ties between these two companies, and that's sort of like what they did with Pixar, where Disney started working with Pixar, and then they bought Pixar, and they did something similar with Marvel, and I kind of see it working here with Netflix now, and I'm excited about it. It seems like a good fit, and certainly justifies my going up to $8.99 a month in January, or $9.99 a month, one or the other. But I really enjoy the Netflix system, and I'm looking forward to see how Marvel and Disney sort of and Netflix sort of grow as a single company. It will be interesting. Also interesting in Force Awakens news is the big question of, is Luke evil in the new? No, I'm going to be honest with you. I have actually not seen the new trailers for Star Wars. I'm very interested in seeing the new Star Wars movies. I really like Star Wars, but for whatever reason, I have not been hunting down the trailers for it. But
Yeah, I haven't seen him either. Sometimes you like to be a little bit surprised.
But there was all this interesting talk. The seeming villain of the piece is called, what is it? Kyle Ren or something. He's got
Kylo Ren. Yeah.
Kylo Ren. That's his. And he's got the 3-pronged lightsaber. And what it kind of struck me as interesting because I'm looking at Kylo Ren and I'm thinking, is this character going to be a big bad like Darth Vader, or is he going to be a showy villain who's going to get killed right away, like Boba Fett or Darth Maul? I really feel that Darth Maul was such a wasted character in the first movie. Because they had this great visual, they built the character up, and then they kill him in the first movie, and it's like, okay, but that was our best visual villain, and now we've got who played Count Dooku?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Old British guy number 4, and it's like, okay, old British guy number 4, certainly classic, but it's no Darth Maul, it's no villain to end all villains. It doesn't have that villainous aesthetic, and much in the way that Boba Fett kind of got wasted throughout the Star Wars universe, even though he wound up being the most popular, character design. To so much so that when they did the prequels, they decided to give him this whole weird, silly backstory. Although, as I say, now we know why the stormtroopers couldn't shoot straight, because they were all cloned from the guy who couldn't shoot straight. Because they're all cloned from Boba Fett, who can't even keep his backpack from shooting him into a Sarlacc pit. It's the guy. Which is why I say to this day that really that was Yoda's master plan, to essentially screw over the Empire by using the worst bounty hunter in the quadrant as the basis for the clone army, so that the Empire would never have a strong enough army to really defeat the rebels, because Yoda was just mad plotting like that,
Yeah.
Yes, but and it's okay for us to talk about Star Wars, because that's all Marvel now. It's a Marvel podcast, but it's all Marvel now. But, speaking of crossovers, which one could say Marvel and Star Wars is a crossover, we're going to have some interesting crossovers coming up as we amalgamize our Marvel and DC podcasts with Phil as the access point for it. Isn't that right, Phil?
All access. Yeah, that's right. We're going to do Charlie and Lilith Hellfire, who I do the World's Finest DC Weekly Review with, they're going to debate certain Marvel versus DC battles, events, could be cinematic universe, could be TV, comic books, who has the better backstory, anything goes.
Yes, and I'm looking forward to it, and we need you, our loyal listeners, to assist us in this by sending us your ideas for matchups, concepts, battles that you would like to hear hashed out by two brilliant minds of comic book universes, myself for Marvel, Lilith Hellfire for DC, with the mighty Phil Parrish as judge, jury, and executioner to decide who is right and who is wrong, as we finally settle these age-old questions of who has the more tragic backstory, Daredevil or Bruce Wayne? It's a trick question, kids. So I actually always think that it's going to be Daredevil, because here's the thing. As tragic as Bruce Wayne's backstory is, he still grew up a billionaire. And you know what? There's a lot. Those $100 bills really good for wiping away tears. That's all I'm saying.
They always say money can't buy you happiness, though, Charlie.
Yeah, but it can buy you a jet ski and a bat wing. You could buy a bat jet. I've never seen Batman frown while he's flying his bat jet. That's what I'm saying. Daredevil, he's got red pajamas. That's what being a public defender lawyer gets you. Bruce Wayne, he's got a jet. So tragedy, yes, but There are worse tragedies that one could endure. Yes. No. But who is the better butler? Is Alfred the better butler, or is Jarvis the better butler? And actually, what I'd really love to look at is how those two characters each kind of evolved from what they were to become kind of very similarized characters, where now we kind of have both Alfred and Jarvis as sort of the mentor and caregiver to young Tony and Bruce, even though in their original incarnations they were just guys that were hired to help around the house. It's all very interesting. And we will be discussing all these things on the all-new World's Finest Amalgam podcast. And we hope that you, our loyal listeners, participate as well. And if you would like to participate in this, you can send your ideas, your thoughts, your questions, your queries, your potential matchups and mashups. If you want to think of a great mashup, say, like what would a character be if they were the amalgam version of, say, the Flash and Namor? What would that be? I don't know. What would the origin of a Flash Namor hybrid be? What would the origin of a Flash Quicksilver hybrid be? Well, that's pretty straightforward, I would imagine, because they're both the same things. But if we were to mash them up, what would it be? Get your thoughts a-whirling, folks, and send them in to superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. That's superconnectivityblog@gmail.com. You can also tweet me your ideas at Charlie&rsquo, CharlieEsser. The two E's in the middle means double the quality. And Phil, if they don't want to talk to me, but they want to talk to a serious person about their ideas and thoughts, where could they reach you?
You can always email me, nightwingpdp@gmail.com. On Twitter, I'm at nightwingpdp. And you can always leave your comments on the All New Marvel Roundup or Super Connectivity Facebook pages also.
Yes. And here is your first thought as we leave for tonight, going into the future. Ask yourself, who is the better billionaire genius, Bruce Wayne or Richard Kyle? Kyle Richmond. Sorry. Richard Kyle is someone else. Better billionaire genius. So you think you'd go Tony Stark, but no. Let's do Batman versus Batman pastiche Nightwing. Who, interestingly enough, speaking of amalgamations and whatnot, is going to be in the all different Marvel universe in his own book. I found it very interesting as a side note that Marvel has decided that since DC's doing such lousy books with their characters, Marvel's going to just take all their pastiche characters and put them in the middle of the Marvel universe now.
Man.
Who is the better Superman pastiche? Superman, because at this point, Casual Friday Superman is a Superman pastiche himself. Casual Friday Superman versus Hyperion.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to wrangle both you and Lilith on this thing.
Oh well, you knew the job was dangerous when you took it, Fred. Okay. And as the chicken said, if I had supervision, would I be wearing this ridiculous costume? Good night, everybody. This has been Super Connectivity.